Takwe, are you okay?
We've got just what you need right here at Femi Wash Media. Call it the Midas Touch, and you wouldn't be wrong. Let us record, produce, mix, and master your audio like nobody does. Reach us on our contact today for the best quality job. In the heart of sub-Saharan Africa, where commerce meets progress, welcome to Soup News, your source for business, economy, and development insight that drive nations forward. From the vibrant streets of Lagos, Africa's fastest economic hub, Soup News takes you on a journey of discovery, analyzing and reporting the facts that lay the foundation for growth and development. We don't just report the news, we create it. Soup News is more than a channel. It is a catalyst for change, spotlighting the stories that shape economies, inspire entrepreneurs, and fuel progress. Covering business, finance, technology, energy, and many more, Soup News provides a daily deep dive into the stories that matter, interviews with industry titans, and analysis that empowers your understanding of economic landscape. Join us daily as we dissect, discuss, and deliver the most relevant and factual news on business and the economy. Soup News is your trusted guide, empowering you with the knowledge to make informed decisions.
The challenge of governance is to see how we can leverage what is on the ground and convert this to wealth for the people.
Russia, China are gaining entry into Africa, and it would appear that some Western countries are losing out.
You're working as an expatriate worker, then you're paid in your currency. But then if you must spend those money, you need to convert those money to the local currency to spend.
For Social Security to work, we need to know exactly how many we are. We don't have a precise number. We need to know exact location of people.
When we address this exchange rate volatility, we will see definitely cost of goods and services will come down.
From a security point of view, we should employ the technology to ensure that we can track individuals and goods within the continent.
This is Early Exchange with Femi Ayodele.
You know, the Early Exchange is all about shaping policy and advancing development with our conversation today. We're set to give you the best of programming.
And Blessing Aiche.
We do hope that you enjoy every time you spend with us here today. The world needs peace. The world needs to come to a round table and find solutions to the pockets of troubles.
Early Exchange, shaping policy, advancing development.
It's another great day for you to be a part of Early Exchange on Soup News. I am Blessing AJ. Today we intend to focus on some key issues. One of them is the Federal Accounts Allocation Committee, FAC, which has distributed about 1.5 trillion to the 3 tiers of government in Nigeria, I mean the federal, the state, and the local government areas. So today we'll be looking at the sharing formula. Why do some states get what and others get some amount of money? Also, because it's still Women's History Month, we'll be looking at empowering women as impact leaders on the show today. Yes, I've got a twin this morning. I'd like to introduce you to him. His name is Femi Ayodele.
Good morning. I'm proud to be your twin.
Just for today.
It's like the secret camera is working.
No, just for today.
You can't deny the spirit.
Don't get too excited. I'll withdraw it.
You know, I think I'm turning to a morning twin spirit. That is good. That's the spirit of Early Exchange. Yes, good morning. Glad you have joined us on Early Exchange. Yes, that's the spirit. Just oneness is what we preach, and that's what we stand for. Glad to have you join us in Early Extend this morning. Don't forget you can be part of this conversation. We just want to look at the allocation of federal resources in Nigeria as done by FAC. Especially we're going to look at the statistics released in February, which about 1.15 trillion was distributed to the 3 tiers of government. Now, what will be the impact of these, and then what should be the right thing to be done? Don't forget, it's your program. All you just have to do is to go on your social media platform, YouTube page, to join us in this conversation. And now let's set the program rolling by taking these updates. Let's switch to the newsroom now. Over to you, Ikenna.
Thank you, Femi. Hello and welcome to News Update on Souk News. I am Ikenna Mba. The Chief Executive of the Nigerian National Petroleum Company Limited, NNPC, Mr. Mele Kyari, says the final investment decision on the Nigeria-Morocco gas pipeline project is slated for December 2024. Speaking at a leadership dialogue session during the ongoing Sarah Week conference in Houston, United States, Kyari also revealed plans to combat crude oil thefts and restore Nigeria's crude oil production. He advocated for a differentiated approach to energy transition in Africa, stressing the importance of ensuring energy security before pursuing transition goals. He emphasized the challenges faced by countries in sub-Saharan Africa in terms of energy availability and highlighted the need to fill the supply gap before addressing energy transition. He underscored the significance of utilizing Nigeria's abundant gas resources to meet domestic and international energy demands, emphasizing gas as a cost-effective means to achieve energy transition. Moving on, the Nigeria Sovereign Investment Authority (NSIA) and North-South Power (NSP) Company Limited finalized a joint venture agreement to establish the Shiroro Generating Company, pioneering Nigeria's 20 megawatts on-grid solar hydro hybrid project. This milestone signifies Nigeria's commitment to renewable energy solutions, spearheading Phase 1A of a broader 300 megawatt solar program. The project will be situated within NSP's Shiroro Hydroelectric Power Plant concession area in Niger State. The Minister of Power, Adebayo Adelabu, emphasized the project's alignment with the ministry's priorities, foreseeing it as a catalyst for capital attraction and sustainable development. The MD CEO of the agency, Aminu Umar Sadiq, stressed the partnership's role in enhancing Nigeria's clean energy portfolio and generating employment opportunities. Away from Nigeria, Saudi Arabia is planning to establish a $40 billion fund dedicated to investing in artificial intelligence. Discussions between representatives of Saudi Arabia's Public Investment Fund, PIF, and U.S. venture capital firm Andreessen Horowitz, among other financiers, have been ongoing, with talks also involving the possibility of Andreessen Horowitz setting up an office in Riyadh. The fund, expected to launch in the second half of 2024, aims to support various tech startups in the AI sector, including chip makers and data centers. Saudi officials have expressed interest in leveraging the country's resources and funding capacity to build a leading hub for AI innovation, emphasizing the kingdom's commitment to fostering technological development. And now, no buyers appeared at an auction in Myanmar for the sale of the home belonging to imprisoned former leader Aung San Suu Kyi, despite the starting price being set at approximately $90 million. The property, located at Yangon's Inye Lake and measuring 1.9 acres, was put up for auction by the Supreme Court following a lengthy legal battle between Suu Kyi and her estranged brother Aung San Suu Kyi, a Nobel laureate, is currently serving a 27-year sentence for charges her supporters claim are fabricated. The colonial-style villa served as Suu Kyi's residence for over 3 decades, witnessing historic events and meetings with prominent figures like former U.S. President Barack Obama and Secretary of State Hillary Clinton. The legal battle over the property traces back to a 2000 lawsuit filed by Aung San Suu seeking a share of the family estate, which was ultimately granted by the Supreme Court following Suu Kyi's ouster in a 2021 coup. Finally, the British government is set to introduce the tobacco and vape bill in Parliament on today's, fulfilling its pledge to phase out smoking among young individuals by prohibiting tobacco sales for future generations. This legislation, touted as one of the toughest anti-tobacco laws globally, will bar individuals aged 15 or younger from legally purchasing tobacco. While smoking itself will not be criminalized, Conservative Prime Minister Rishi Sunak emphasized the need to address smoking as a leading cause of preventable health issues. Despite criticism from some within the governing party, the bill is expected to pass with support from opposition Labour Party. The move comes amid concerns over the rising cost of smoking on the National Health Service and the economy, alongside a surge in vape use among non-smokers and youth. The proposed legislation also includes measures to regulate vape displays, flavors, and packaging targeted at children to counter the uptick in youth vaping. With that, it's a wrap on news updates. I'm Ikenna Mba. Back to Femi and Blessing. Thanks for watching.
All right, thank you so much for giving us the latest development across the globe. And now, let's go on a short break. We'll be right back to kick off our conversation for today. Stay with us.
In the heart of sub-Saharan Africa, where commerce meets progress, welcome to Souk News, your source for business, economy, and development insight that drive nations forward. From the vibrant streets of Lagos, Africa's fastest economic hub, Souk News takes you on a journey of discovery, analyzing and reporting the facts that lay the foundation for growth and development. We don't just report the news, we create it. Souk News is more than a channel. It is a catalyst for change, spotlighting the stories that shape economies, inspire entrepreneurs, and fuel progress. Covering business, finance, technology, energy, and many more, Souk News provides a daily deep dive into the stories that matter, interviews with industry titans, and analysis that empowers your understanding of economic landscape. Join us daily as we dissect, discuss, and deliver the most relevant and factual news on business and the economy. Souk News is your trusted guide, empowering you with the knowledge to make informed decisions.
My name is Dr. Agility Obi.
My name is Etemere Glover. Naomi, well done, and shout out to Souk News.
Shout out to Souk News. I want to encourage everyone to keep watching Souk News.
Shout out to Souk News, and yes, tune into them.
Keep watching Souk News. They are one in town.
Hey, we're watching Souk News.
Keep watching Souk News.
Keep watching Souk News. Catch them on YouTube and all social media channels.
Hey, my name is Frank Edowo, and I'm imploring you. No, forget that. I am forcing you, coercing you to always stay tuned to Souk News for your news requirements.
The challenge of governance is to see how we can leverage what is on the ground and convert this to wealth for the people.
Russia, China are gaining entry into Africa, and it would appear that some Western countries are losing out.
You're working as an expatriate worker, then you're paid in your currency. But then if you must spend those money, you need to convert those money to the local currency to spend.
For Social Security to work, we need to know exactly how many we are. We don't have a precise number. We need to know exact location of people.
When we address this exchange rate volatility, we will see definitely cost of goods and services will come down.
From a security point of view, we should employ the technology to ensure that we can track individuals and goods within the continent.
This early exchange with Femi Ayodele.
You know, the early exchange is all about shaping policy and advancing development. With our conversation today, we're set to give you the best of programming.
And Blessing Aiche.
We do hope that you enjoy every time you spend with us here today. The world needs peace. The world needs to come to a round table and find solutions to the pockets of troubles.
Early exchange, shaping policy, advancing development.
And now let's kick off our major conversation for today. Every month, the Federal Account Allocation Committee, popularly known as FAC, allocates federal revenue to 36 states and to 774 local governments in Nigeria. The essence of this fund is for all the tiers of government to be able to meet their financial obligations for the month. Now, for the month of February, a sum of 1.15 trillion was distributed to all the tiers of government. Now, we want to have a major conversation looking at the administration of this revenue. How has all the states administered this revenue? To provide a better perspective about this, we're being joined by Sam Oruji, who is our in-house analyst. Glad you have you join us this morning as usual.
Good morning, Femi. My pleasure to be here. And
Good morning,
Blessing.
Welcome to the show.
My pleasure. Thank you.
So, is FAC becoming a ritual every month? Something must come from the federal government to all states, the 36 states, to all the 774 local governments in Nigeria. How will you assess the administration of the federal allocation by FAC so far? Let's have from that.
If I permitted to use your word, maybe is a ritual incantation at the end of every month where revenues are shared. I think to a very large extent, that has improved on the information that is in the public space. But what is worrisome, from November last year up to February this year, there's a greater percentage increase on what is shared between federal, state, and local government. But then what is the impact in terms of what gets to the people? Maybe as we advance the conversation, we'll be able to speak to some issue. But when I look at those figures and I look at the cost of revenue collection, I'm a bit worried about the amount of money that has accrued to agencies that collect revenue, particularly the custom. I think the government still have to look at the cost of revenue collection, which in my personal view is still very high. But by and large, there's been a steady increase. But then what is the impact of the increase? And I think this last one is about 2.07 trillion. If you look at the total aggregate. But then, in the last 4 months or so, where the treasury trends of increase, I don't see a meaningful development based on the value and the volume that is now accruable to the 3 tiers of government. So that should translate into development in terms of what the citizens see on ground.
Before we get into what has been done with the monies received by the states and even the local governments, let's take a look at the sharing formula. What do you perceive to be the sharing formula? Because each state does not get the same amount of money. It varies from state to state.
There are principles of derivation, particularly in terms of those states that contribute more in terms of what they get from mineral exploitation. So most of the coastal states, 6 or 7 coastal states in particular, have more when it comes to the sharing formula. But there's been clamor, there's a new constitutional review And people are saying that the current scenario where the federal government seems to take bulk of the revenue is not workable in a true federal system. So the clamor is that the states that produce revenue should take a greater chunk. And that's what it was in the early 60s up to 66 when the military took over power. So there are still issues in terms of resource control, in terms of skewed revenue sharing, that the almighty federal government takes more, but states and local government should actually have more revenue and even pay tax at the center. And that has been the current debate when you talk about devolution, which is essentially about revenue as well.
Talking about the sharing formula, as we speak now, the federal government takes 52%, states they take 26%, while local government 20%. Now, if the advocacy for the oil region or the states who are...
Not necessarily oil,
Yeah.
all revenues,
Already,
wherever part of the country those revenue come.
Yeah.
They should benefit based on their contribution.
If that advocacy is being adhered to, don't you think it will bring injustice? And there won't be equity in the system. What do you think?
No, I don't think it will bring about injustice. Whatever you share is what you bring to the table. And those are the very principles. If you look at what they call comparative federalism, regions or subnational government that contribute to the common force of the federation take a greater pie of the cake that they bake. So I think the sharing formula should even be, in my view, should even be 70-30. 30 should go to the federal government, while the remaining 70% should be between the states and local government. So it's not necessarily about the coastal city, the way we are considered today. Every mineral deposit within the confines of the Federal Republic of Nigeria should be compensated based on the derivative from those regions. So I don't think it will bring about injustice. Rather, it will bring about justice and equity if revenue. But this almighty federal government, where everything is domiciled at the center, has been one of the bane of Nigerian development in recent time.
There is also a counter-argument to that from some quarters that the federal government taking the large chunk of it is justifiable, being that it is somehow saying that the federal government engages in more projects than the state. Now, let's look at the allocation to some of the states, particularly those who receive the 13% oil derivation. Delta states for the month of February together received 38.1 billion naira. We have Edo State 10.2 billion naira. Moving down, we also have Imo 9.5 billion naira, Rivers 28.4 billion naira, and Ondo 10.3 billion naira. This is some of Bayelsa 22.8 billion naira. From what has been given to the states for the month of February and what they usually receive, looking at the infrastructure development projects engaged in by the states, is it commensurable to what they receive monthly?
And that's the point I spoke to earlier, that there's been a remarkable increase in recent time. Let's just take the last 4 months, for example, where there's a spike based on the gains made from the fuel subsidy removal. The liberalization of the foreign exchange market has made some gains. And these gains are translated into revenue to the various tiers of government. But when you look at what is on the ground, that does not justify. And I can take Delta, for example, which incidentally is my state, has over 38.1 billion received in the last sharing formula. So, but when you look at the state of infrastructure and the welfare and the deliverable in the state, you cannot match what the state gets to what is on. So it's a major challenge in terms of development. So the call here is that states and citizens within those states should put their government to be more accountable, so that these resources that they get, to what extent can they evaluate the impact in terms of the increases that they've got. And it goes across. The next one in hierarchy of receivable from the federal government is Rivers State, followed by Bayelsa State, then Imo, then Edo State. So those revenues are coming, those increase, the percentage, which is about 20-something%. If I was in government, that increase should be dedicated to special projects. And you begin to address the citizen that this is the increase, about the 23% or thereabout increase that I had in the last 4 months. These are the projects that I would dedicate those monies to. But then citizens need to push their government to account for those money.
Now, let's look at the figure released for February. You have 1.15 trillion. For January, it was 1.13 trillion. If you look at the difference, that's about 20 billion naira. That's to tell you there's an increase which is attributed to the removal of first subsidy. But your argument is some of these impact of these removal of first subsidy has not been felt by the citizens. But why do you think is a challenge for state government to translate this higher revenue to better lives for their citizens?
It's essentially about corruption. The leaderships are not accountable. And this is as a result of docile citizens that are not well informed. Citizens must push very hard to put their government to account. So once you're able to do that, there will be some level of transparency, and you have what you call audit trail of this revenue received. And people are able to look at various project estimates. The cost of constructing road in Delta may be more expensive than that of Edo State, depending on the topography. And there are global best practices in terms of pricing regime. So what are the markup? So when you have a kind of bogus budget framework for projects, so we need to streamline those budgets, and people need to bring government to account on these various receivables that come to the 3 tiers of government. Then on the other hand, local government too are not doing anything. So now that there's a regulatory framework that says the money should get to the local government directly, then the local government chairmen, who are like the mayors of the city, should be able to equally account for those money. So at the local government, citizens should do more advocacy and see how this revenue, if you have this increase, percentage increase month by month, what is the level? What project are you putting this money to?
Now, apart from the removal of subsidy and the floating of the dollar actually contributing to increase in revenue for the government, now, do you think this is actually increased considering the inflation rate that Nigeria is currently experiencing? Do you think is increase in the hands of the governors or the state government what they receive?
If you disaggregate the revenue and you tie it to the rate of inflation, I think there's a remarkable increase. So what is important is translate those revenue increase in terms of infrastructural development that will improve on the welfare of the people, and that again to a very large extent will drive down the rate of inflation. So I think that's the core issue for discussion.
What do you make of this argument that most states now rely on the federal allocation rather than looking inward to see how they can increase their IGR?
I think it's the bogus politics that we practice here, where everybody go to Abuja at the end of the month to go and collect a paycheck. After that, creativity and innovation from some of the states, we cannot say a blanket statement. Some of the states are making effort and doing well. And they don't look at how they can improve on the internally generated revenue that are bound within the state in terms of creating value. What kind of resource endowment beyond the oil and gas and some other solid mineral deposits that are domiciled with the federal government, what can you do differently as a state to create employment, to create value for the state? And when you're able to do that, then the welfare of the citizen, which is the primary responsibility of government, will be sustained over a period of time.
Let's take a look at the cost of generating revenue for the for some agencies of government. So the revenue generating agencies here comprise of customs. We also have the Federal Inland Revenue Service, Nigerian Upstream Petroleum Regulatory Commission, and they received some amounts of money as cost of revenue collection. For customs, they received 16.27 billion naira. FRS received 43.35 billion naira, and the Upstream Petroleum Regulatory Commission received 18.68 billion naira, respectively, as cost of revenue collections for the month of February. Is that too much?
It's too much. And in my intro, I mentioned that the volume of what you use, or the cost of revenue collection, in my view, is very high. And one of the ways to curtail this, particularly the federal government, is to put automation processes in place, what you simply call e-government, where revenues are collected, the human element, the human factor is reduced to the barest minimum. And there are case studies within Africa, and the Rwanda model has always been the one everybody talked about. There was what they call Irembo in Rwanda, where over 20-something ministries and departments, agencies of government are in that Irembo. Irembo is a PPP arrangement where every revenue that is accruable to government is done through online service. So service delivery is improved upon. This corruption and the wastages in terms of the collection process will reduce, and government will be able to get additional revenue. So those figures, in my mind, are bogus in terms of collections. If you look at the ratio of the revenue they collected and the cost of collection, I think, in my view, is very high, and the government still need to work on that further to reduce the cost of revenue collection. There are a lot of leakages within those systems, and the only way to solve it is an e-government ecosystem that will reduce human element in revenue collection.
All right. We're still talking about federal allocation, but we need to go on a break now. We'll be right back in a moment to continue our conversation in this regard. Stay with us.
In the heart of sub-Saharan Africa, where commerce meets progress, welcome to Souk News, your source for business, economy, and development insight that drive nations forward. From the vibrant streets of Lagos, Africa's fastest economic hub, Souk News takes you on a journey of discovery, analyzing and reporting the facts that lay the foundation for growth and development. We don't just report the news, we create it. Souk News is more than a channel. It is a catalyst for change, spotlighting the stories that shape economies, inspire entrepreneurs, and fuel progress. Covering business, finance, technology, energy, and many more, Souk News provides a daily deep dive into the stories that matter, interviews with industry titans, and analysis that empowers your understanding of economic landscape. Join us daily as we dissect, discuss, and deliver the most relevant and factual news on business and the economy. Souk News is your trusted guide, empowering you with the knowledge to make informed decisions.
My name is Yinka Babalola.
My name is Ijoma Pelokoro.
My name is Joshua Hassan.
I am Rotarian or Mosunde Lawson.
It's Ife Yunwarita Ejeze. My friends call me Ife.
My name is Rotarian Lola Dare.
I'm inviting you to keep watching Souk News. It's the right station to tune to.
I like Souk News. Souk News is good.
I want to charge you all to listen to Souk News, watch the news.
You can have unlimited news, first time.
Find Souk News. Be with Souk News. Never switch off. You are better for it. Souk News is the real thing.
Listen to their coverage and you'll be glad you did.
Turn to your YouTube, turn to your Instagram, turn to all your digital channels and look for Souk News.
Keep watching.
Keep watching.
Please, guys, keep watching
Souk News.
The challenge of governance is to see how we can leverage what is on the ground and convert this to wealth for the people.
Russia, China are gaining entry into Africa, and it would appear that some Western countries are losing out.
You're working as an expatriate worker, then you're paid in your currency. But then if you must spend those money, you need to convert those money to the local currency to spend.
For Social Security to work, we need to know exactly how many we are. We don't have a precise number. We need to know exact location of people.
When we address this exchange rate volatility, we will see definitely cost of goods and services will come down.
From a security point of view, we should employ the technology to ensure that we can track individuals and goods within the continent.
This is Early Exchange with Femi Ayodele.
You know, the Early Exchange is all about shaping policy and advancing development. With our conversation today, we're set to give you the best of programming.
And Blessing Aiche.
We do hope that you enjoy every time you spend with us here today. The world needs peace. The world needs to come to a round table and find solutions to the pockets of troubles.
Early Exchange, shaping policy, advancing development.
Good to know you're still with us on Early Exchange, and this morning we're looking at the Federal Accounts Allocation Committee's distribution to the affairs of government, what the different tiers of government have received, the federal government, the 36 states, and of course the 774 local government areas in Nigeria. We've talked about the allocation that goes to the federal government and that of the state. This time around, let's turn to the local government. So the local government's clamoring for autonomy and financial autonomy. But if you look at the local government and the way things happen there, it doesn't look like much activities happen at the local government. So if the monies that are being passed through the state governments begin to go directly to the local governments, are we expected to see some change in terms of utilization of the fund? Or do you see it going to be like the state situation where money is allocated, but what you see on the ground is not commensurate with the funds allocated?
First and foremost, my view is that let the money get to the local government. The mayors, called chairmen here, we have to account for the citizens of the local government, and they are closer to the people. So once that direct charge of the money getting to the local government gets in there, and I'm sure that citizens will make them to account, and hopefully development will occur in those places. But this kind of state capture, particularly from state government, has not really helped the local government. That has made the mayors to be very, very lazy, excuse my word, in the sense that they put the blame on the state government that eventually try to take some money when the money comes. So if this money comes directly, then the responsibility of the local council to be more accountable, I think, will be there. But then, if they don't do well, the citizens will have to find a way to push them hard to account for those money that they receive.
I think the greatest challenge here has to do with transparency, or let's use the word accountability. What kind of mechanism can be put in place, especially at the local government level, to ensure that there is proper account for the money being received, not just being received, and also the expenses being made, the projects and all that? What can be done, especially at the local level, to promote accountability?
I think what is important at the local government is what you call citizen diplomacy, where citizens take government very seriously, and they're able to look at what is valuable to the local council, what money comes in, what are the projects, what are the best practices if you are doing some local road construction, what even the internal revenue of local government get from wheelbarrow, for off and on wine licenses and all that. What are these monies? How do you spend those monies? So accountability will be driven by citizens' participation in the local affairs. So citizens must take ownership of governance at the local level. Once you're able to do that, then your councillors, you equally have the legislative interplay at the local government, but how functional they are is a different ball game. But citizens, once you're interested in key governance issues, then they'll be able to make those who operate at the local council. But first and foremost, let this money get to those council, and they must publish statement of account of how those monies were received, what was for salaries, recurrent expenditure, and what is for capital projects. And begin to put those projects as line items and put it in the public domain so citizens can look at what you're doing. And there are a lot of civil society organizations already doing that, even at federal, state level, and some local government, to bring leadership into account.
There's also this advocacy for like a town hall engagement with the people at the grassroots, a kind of town hall meeting. Will that make any impact?
Well, the way the town halls are currently constituted, they are, for me, in my view, for political jamborees where political stalwarts meet with those in government and they settle themselves in one way or the other. But as a concept, it's good. So maybe they should recalibrate or re-engineer that process where an actual town hall meeting is met, where the community has an engagement with those in government, able to scrutinize the activities. So it's not a one-way traffic where the government speaks down to the people. And once you respond in a manner that is not in consonance with those who are in government, you are seen as if you are rebellious or you are critical of government, and they begin to look out for you. So a more community engagement strategy, which should even dovetail into the governance process. So citizens' participation, not just coming to reel out. How do you involve citizens, even in the process? They may not necessarily be in government, but you have a space for them at the table when you try to make projects. That's where even Rwanda equally has that a concept where local council mayors compete for project deliverable, and they win a prize money at the end of every year. This is a big competition. What impact, what kind of project really impact the community? And this is driven, led by the community participation in those projects, and you win a prize money. So there's a healthy competition for development.
Still on the issue of autonomy, is it about the local governments not having direct control over their funds? Because they also generate revenue. But looking at the Lagos State example, where the state government is pushing for legalization of the 37 local council development areas, vis-a-vis the call for autonomy, how do you see this?
I think the point is that in 2003, the Ahmed Tinubu administration in Lagos created those local government development area, whatever you call them, or council, that were not in consonance with the constitutional provision at that particular point in time. And the Obasanjo regime had a very big issue with Tinubu, who is currently the president of the Federal Republic. But the idea really, in terms of decentralization, devolution of power, which actually federalism speaks to, was what Tinubu did in 2023. So the push for legalization in terms of bringing those 37 local development area council into the constitution is a welcome development. I think it's within the purview of state government to even create local government. But we had the almighty government, federal government, under the military fiat that created some of these local councils. So Obasanjo say, within the constitutional provision, is the number of local government that we have in Lagos. Therefore, I will only release money. So they went to court and those money was held. And that's brought about the ingenuity of Tinubu's administration, how he was able to raise revenue and run the state and run those local councils. I'm sure he's at the center now. And let's see how he pushed for that kind of agenda so that other states who are clamoring to improve on the local government, grassroots development, should even create other local governments.
Isn't that duplication of the tier of government, or a tier of government rather?
No, it's not duplication. It's not duplication.
If you have the local government areas and you have the LCDAs.
No, the point is he created those development area to be able to bring development closer to the people.
But that's what the local government areas were meant to achieve.
Yes, but the local government that were created in the state, based on the military fiat, in my understanding, did not deal with the aspirations of grassroots development. So the man looked at the possibility of developing government or governance at the grassroots. He created more development council. And if you look at the level of development in Lagos in comparison to some other states where you have fewer local government, Lagos State has demonstrated some element of leadership, in my view, in terms of how grassroots development can be a major driver of governance.
But isn't that also increasing the cost of governance?
It's not increasing. So if you split local government, for example, you have Agege, for example, as a local government, and you create another development council from Agege, and the revenue that accrued to Agege previously is 15 million naira. So what you do is just to split that 15 million to 7.5 million in terms of development. So you push for development, and I'm one of those who supported that decision in 2003 when that was created. So what they are clamoring for is to get a constitutional backing for those local government, 37 in particular in Lagos, to have a kind of constitutional provision to justify the creation. And once that is done, that will give some authority to some other state government who want to advance that kind of conversation. In my view, that is actually the devolution of power and actual practice of federalism that we need to do, not this kind of centralized unitary government that we practice in Nigeria.
The truth is the LCDs, the 37 LCDs are in existence already. They are just asking for an official recognition. But looking at what happened during the Obasanjo regime between Obasanjo and Tinubu, why did you think Obasanjo kicked against this? And what should be done differently this time around, now that they are pushing for it during the constitutional review? And do you see the success of this, knowing fully well that the pioneer of this is now the president?
Right. What happened in 2003 was a constitutional issue. So I think they went to court within the framework for what was within the Constitution. It was within the purview of the president to say those local council development areas are not recognized, because in the schedule of the Constitution, you already have the listed local government, which are published already as a constitutional means of advancing things. But now, the man who believes in the devolution of power, who preaches true federalism, is at the driver's seat. So let's see how that process, which he initiated some years back, now let's see whether he will be able to back a bill for that clamor to get his special status for Lagos. By the way, beyond the 37 local council legalization process, Lagos is equally pushing for a special status because of the peculiarity of Lagos. And far back 1958, there's what we call the Willie Commission that brought to fore that there's a need to grant special status to some states, and the Niger Delta in particular was one of the major framework that came out of those commission. So I think the Lagos State government is in the right frame to pursue those agenda. But to what extent can they put this through a constitutional means remain to be seen. But the president is there. I think he should put up an additional bill in addition to what the Lagos State government is calling for, so that we can get to that the idea of real proper devolution of power.
If this is to be replicated in other states, do you foresee any issue between the local governments and the LCDAs in terms of supremacy?
No, there's no issue. So once you break down these governmental systems into smaller bits, then you're able to bring development. So there are some local governments that may have to travel over 100 and something kilometers to get to their local council. And they belong to a local government, but you don't even see the presence of local governance, apart from some of the boys that they put on the streets to drive revenue. Beyond that, you don't see governance in place. So if that is done and there's a clamor to split the current existing local government to more local government, the more the merrier at the grassroots level.
The creation of more local government or LCDAs, which could be valid, but how do you marry that with the advocacy for cutting the cost of governance at a critical time like this?
No, when you are talking about the cost of governance.
Because if you create them,
no.
you allocate resources.
When you talk about cost of governance, look at the federal more. Okay? So the cost of governance here, what is the ratio of the cost of governance at the local council level? It's almost near zero. And most of even the local government currently, they cannot even provide those development in terms of even providing trunk-C road because there's a state capture to a very large extent. So if you break down those local government, this Lagos example, if you move around Lagos and go to where you created other additional local development council or areas as you call them, you see some semblance of new development. And I don't know whether it's Blessing that asked that question earlier. So for example, you have a 15 million naira going to a particular, you split. So it's the same level. So aggregate local government, maybe you code the local government area, you divide, you have another head of personnel management, you have the chairman, then you bring the government closer to the people. So you're able to even collect, in the fourth schedule of the Constitution, even if you see the power of the local government is far greater than that of the state. The kind of revenue options that are listed there, talk about bicycle licenses, wheelbarrow, you slaughter a meat in the abattoir, you're supposed to pay per head of whatever you do. But then because the corruption system that has become so endemic, we don't even account for those line items across the local government.
Well, the argument I'm making is if this is replicated, for Lagos State I can understand, but for other states, if this is replicated.
If it's their desire to do that, once that constitutional provision is made and Lagos is successful with it, some other state government will want to tinker with that.
But and what I'm saying is...
No, I got the point you made that will increase in the cost of governance. I'm saying at the local council, the cost of governance is not a major issue, as it were. Rather, when you break those systems more, you are able to provide development to people.
Breaking them more means you employ more people, you pay salaries.
You may not necessarily employ more people. You just make people to be more accountable in terms of the deliverable that you expect. That's my personal view. And local and Lagos state government, with those 37, has made a good account of those grassroots development so far. So if you want to research on that, you can see the level of development, how close governance is to the people at the grassroots level. And you can see the peculiarity, even in terms of political structure, and how the Lagos state is able to even deliver politically based on their commitment to grassroots development.
So let's look at funding of this local governments or the LCDAs, as it's called in Lagos, that are created. Now, if they are legalized, will the funding for the LCDs be provided by the federal or be provided by the state government? And if it's the state government, how many states can actually bear the cost of doing this? Will this not keep the control of the LCDAs or local governments still in the hands of the state governments?
All right, I'm one of those who don't believe in this concept, particularly when you talk about, sorry for the little digression, state police, where you say people will create those instruments, create those institutions first. Then when you create those institutions, you think of how to handle it from there. So if, for example, it passed through the constitutional review that the 37 local council development area in Lagos passed through a constitutional means, by implication, it's already in the constitution. So it behaves on the federal government to rework the revenue sharing formula that comes into Lagos that take cognizance of the 37 states. And by implication, other states that will be interested in that process will equally start those processes as well. And I'm sure once they pass through within the constitutional review, some provisions in terms of the processes of initiating local development councils will be put there. So when you meet those requirements, then you're able to create one. So that's, let's get to that level, whether they pass through their constitutional review first and foremost.
I would like you to shed more light so that our viewers will understand, Lagos pushing for a special status. How will that work? What will be the implication of that?
No, pushing for special status means that as a state, within the Federal Republic of Nigeria, there are some peculiarity. So if you look at the size of population in Lagos, you look at it from rural-urban migration, Lagos population conservatively put at over 20 million people. The last census, I think Fashola was in government, challenged those figures, but I can't remember some of those things offhand. But what that speaks to is that there are some peculiarity. Therefore, the federal government, because of that peculiarity, just like you have 13% derivation based on revenue contribution, then Lagos is asking for a special status where you can say 1%, 2% be made available because of the constraints for development, even though they have a big chunk of internally generated revenue. And mind you, Lagos generates the greatest what do you call value-added tax. And when you generate it here, you give it to Canada that has about 47 local government. That is not equitable. So you should give some status, special status. And I think that advocacy, that clamor is in the right direction. I'm sure if they're able to get through, then they can get some percentage in terms of revenue to take care of developmental challenge because of the peculiarity of Lagos.
Talking about IGR, now earlier when we began the discussion talking about FAAC, we established that some states generate more revenue than others. So in the aspect of the sharing formula, for all revenue, it is shared across, but just that some percentage, more percentages are given to the states where the resource is gotten from. We also have states that have minerals. Should the same be done for mineral deposits that have been extracted from other states? Should it be shared across board?
No, it's the same principles of derivation.
But not as much as oil, crude oil.
No, the point is that why don't you develop those resources to a level that you have big revenue, then you earn those kind of money as well. I think the principles is generic. So whatever contributions you make will be based on the principles of derivation.
Derivation for the resource states. What about making it federal as VAT is being shared, crude oil, revenue from crude oil is being shared, minerals from other states should be also shared?
That's the point I'm making, that once revenues are derivable based on mineral exploitation, so remove oil and gas, okay, talk about gold, talk about other mineral deposits. Once you exploit those minerals, it's the same level of percentage in terms of derivation principle that comes to the state. So it's not only oil and gas, it's already enshrined as a constitutional provision based on the principles of derivation. But then the other issues, even when you talk about gold, particularly in Zamfara and some other states, people are saying that the kind of exploitation that happened in the coastal states of the Niger Delta, that same principles are not deployed in so people are saying that what happens in the Niger Delta should equally happen elsewhere.
That's my question.
Yes, so I got you correctly. But are those states paying those revenues to the federal coffer appropriately? Is the Ministry of Solid Mineral using the same principles in trying to clean up the ecosystem in that sector so that the same derivation principle can be applied? I think that has to be with the responsibility of those who are in government to see that, because that derivation principle is already enshrined in the Constitution.
So better implementation.
Yes.
Now that you have states and local government receiving more revenue than ever, what are your recommendations to state governments as regards the administration of those funds?
The increment, in my view, the percentage increase should be dedicated to specific projects, because this is what you were earning at a particular point in time. And you were able to survive with that. So that kind of money, in my view, is some savings should be dedicated to specific projects over a period of time. So month on month, when you earn that money, by the end of the 12th calendar month, we'll have been able to accrue certain percentage of money based on the new increment, then deploy it to specific people-centered projects, and that you can see the trajectory, that this is the money you got and this is what you use it for, and involve the citizens in the process in terms of what they want, in terms of projects. So don't just provide a market when the people actually need potable drinking water.
So how can the citizens actually follow up with what is being spent, or what is being received and what is being spent? Sometimes access to information is not really there at some level.
I'm sorry to use this word. I think generally, as a people, as citizens, we're a bit docile. The informations are there. It's just that we don't seek for information. There are civil society organizations that are already working in that space. So what citizens within those local government and state is to see how they can assess those civil society organizations that are doing audit trail in terms of their projects, so that they can find a way to evaluate those projects. And quickly before we round up, there's a particular constituency project in Osun State where money has been released, and the federal constituent, I won't mention the name, nothing has happened on the site. And the whistleblower says, as we speak, this money has been released. This place for this primary school has not even been cleared. And a call was put through to the guy in the normal way where they think. And they said, sorry, these are the audit trade, these are what has happened. Within 2 weeks, the caterpillars went to the site. So that's what citizen diplomacy can do. When you keep it, an audit trail on what happened in the public space, then people become more accountable.
All right, Sam Oruwije, we just have to leave the conversation here because of time. Thank you so much for your intervention and your submission on this subject. Let's hope the state governments and the local government authority will do more when it comes to the administration of this revenue.
Thank you for having me.
All right, we're not done yet. It's a special month for the women. And so when we return, we're going to have a special conversation looking at empowering women as impact leaders. Stay with us.
In the heart of sub-Saharan Africa, where commerce meets progress, welcome to Souk News, your source for business, economy, and development insight that drive nations forward. From the vibrant streets of Lagos, Africa's fastest economic hub, Souk News takes you on a journey of discovery, analyzing and reporting the facts that lay the foundation for growth and development. We don't just report the news, we create it. Souk News is more than a channel. It is a catalyst for change, spotlighting the stories that shape economies, inspire entrepreneurs, and fuel progress. Covering business, finance, technology, energy, and many more, Souk News provides a daily deep dive into the stories that matter, interviews with industry titans, and analysis that empowers your understanding of economic landscape. Join us daily as we dissect, discuss, and deliver the most relevant and factual news on business and the economy. Souk News is your trusted guide, empowering you with the knowledge to make informed decisions.
Broad Street. Broad Street, situated in Lagos Island, is steeped in Nigerian history. Once the biggest financial hub of the country, it housed the headquarters of major banks, linked the CBN, the stock exchange, and the loads of lender companies. Broad Street is a historically significant street. It has played a central role in the development of Lagos and history, an important commercial and administrative center for the British colonial authorities. It was also a home to some of the city's earliest modern buildings. Broad Street was a residential area in the pre-colonial era. With the British came the Methodist Boys High School in 1878 and the Broad Street Prison in 1882, renamed Freedom Park. The General Hospital, which was a British military hospital, was built in 1893, being the first general hospital in Nigeria. The old British Secretariat building, which is now the Federal Ministry of Justice, was built in 1906. Broad Street has seen a full turn into modern commercial office blocks, complexes, skyscrapers, and markets from the outer marina through Akpombo early into the Adeniji Adele Road. Broad Street is one of the busiest streets in Nigeria on weekdays, where commercial activities take place day and night. From modern buildings to ancient structures, this street gives one a raw dose of life in Lagos. Broad Street is often referred to as Lagos Financial District. It boasts a mix of architectural styles, reflecting its long history, colonial-era buildings, Victorian and Edwardian architectural features, alongside more modern skyscrapers and structures. Broad Street remains a vital, vibrant part of the Nigerian economy. Broad Street. Souk Enlightenment.
In the heart of sub-Saharan Africa, where commerce meets progress, welcome to Souk News, your source for business, economy, and development insight that drive nations forward. From the vibrant streets of Lagos, Africa's fastest economic hub, Souk News takes you on a journey of discovery, analyzing and reporting the facts that lay the foundation for growth and development. We don't just report the news, we create it. Souk News is more than a channel. It is a catalyst for change, spotlighting the stories that shape economies, inspire entrepreneurs, and fuel progress. Covering business, finance, technology, energy, and many more, Souk News provides a daily deep dive into the stories that matter, interviews with industry titans, and analysis that empowers your understanding of economic landscape. Join us daily as we dissect, discuss, and deliver the most relevant and factual news on business and the economy. Souk News is your trusted guide, empowering you with the knowledge to make informed decisions.
The challenge of governance is to see how we can leverage what is on the ground and convert this to wealth for the people.
Russia, China are gaining entry into Africa, and it would appear that some Western countries are losing out.
You're working as an expatriate worker, then you're paid in your currency. But then if you must spend those money, you need to convert those money to the local currency to spend.
For Social Security to work, we need to know exactly how many we are. We don't have a precise number. We need to know exact location of people.
When we address this exchange rate volatility, we will see definitely cost of goods and services will come down.
From a security point of view, we should employ the technology to ensure that we can track individuals and goods within the continent.
This early exchange with Femi Ayodele.
You know, the early exchange is all about shaping policy and advancing development. With our conversation today, we're set to give you the best of programming.
And Blessing Aiche.
We do hope that you enjoy every time you spend with us here today. The world needs peace. The world needs to come to a round table and find solutions to the pockets of troubles.
Early exchange, shaping policy, advancing development.
All right, thank you for staying with us on the Early Exchange. It is time for us to come to my constituency, if you understand what I mean the women constituency. It's still a month, so we can just flaunt it and put it out there in your face. Well, we thank you for celebrating us when it was International Women's Day. And remember, we are in the month of March, so it's Women's History Month. To that end, we brought on the show today someone who is a formidable leader, someone who's accomplished a lot in various sectors, even sectors that are male-dominated. She is Ayommaji, and she is the Executive Director, Africa Leadership Initiative, West Africa. Good morning. Welcome to the show.
Good morning. Thank you. Good morning.
Glad you have you join us. Your first time on Early Exchange.
Very first time.
I wish we had a bell. I'll ring it for you.
Why not?
All right, sir. It's Women's History Month. Let's look at women empowerment, empowering women to become impact leaders. So, looking at the history of women over the years, time even before I was born, women have been pushing for change. They have been changing the narrative. Until this age, women are still in the business of trying to build a world of equity. So, how do you see the journey so far for women globally and Africa women?
Thank you very much. I think I was reading a few days ago, perhaps at the beginning of the month, just researching on the International Women's Day, and going back to how the entire movement started. And I realized that the International Women's Day has been celebrated for over a century, started by some German ladies. So the narrative didn't start today. What we have, the situation we have today, is something that has persisted over the years, over decades. But I must say that yes, some progress has been made in the bid to advance the cause of women, to recognize the contribution of women, to provide opportunities for women globally, perhaps better in some other climes than Nigeria, than the African continent, but the journey is on. I'd just like to say, the journey is on. Thank you.
All right, talking about International Women's Day, the theme for this year is invest in women, accelerate progress. How will you assess the level of investment in women when it comes to Africa? What are some of the critical challenges that are still, creating a setback when it comes to investment in women? And also, let's look at the perception in society about the investment in women.
I think the results speak for themselves to a very large extent. I would say that the investment could be better. Much could be done in the area of investing in women. And when we talk about investment in women, we're talking about tangible and measurable opportunities given to women, tangible and measurable investments that have been made to accelerate the progress of women on the continent. And very easily, if you point to the area of education, there are more girls out of school than boys. In Nigeria, they're talking a percentage of about 30% of girls between 9 to 12 are out of school. You look at economic opportunities. How easy is it for women to access funding, for business opportunities? You look at land ownership. How easy is it for women to, first of all, afford the land, or even in some cases, have, land inheritance implemented seamlessly? It's easier, for the male gender to say, okay, we've inherited land, perhaps than for women in some areas, not all, to be honest. So the investment in women could be much better, across the continent. But like I say, the journey is on. We do see, women coming out more and more, heading businesses, but a lot more could be done.
So in spite of all the work that has been done, we still have a high percentage of girls out of school in Africa. What do you think are the challenges to the investment in women or sustainable investment in women?
I think, first of all, there has to be the willpower for countries, for governments, for leadership in these countries to put the fortune, the lots of women, consciously working towards that. And investment in women, or the outcomes, rather, for women development is affected by several factors. There's the family setting, there's the educational setbacks or inequalities in the area of access to education. There are cultural, traditional issues that also do affect the ability of women to advance as more than they actually are. There's the issue of legislation, women in power, women in governance. We know that on the continent we haven't done as well, but a country for Rwanda perhaps is doing much better than Nigeria in terms of women in leadership, women in government. So the policies, the structures, the enabling institutions to advance the rights and the opportunities for women all need to work in sync. Coming to the health sector, women, bear the brunt of the failures of in that sector. Why? Because women, just even by nature of their physiology, perhaps sometimes do need more access to health care, to good health care. And so all of these are missing to a large extent. So they all do have an impact on the lot of women, to put it that way.
Let's talk about women and leadership. Women in leadership positions, which you're one of them. If they could look at women who are in leadership positions, you have a lot of them. We can mention several names, Okonjo Iweala and the rest of you, even Blessing too. She's a leader, But let's look at some of the systemic challenges that are associated with women occupying leadership positions. What has been the experience, especially in a place like Nigeria, and then the disposition to women leadership in Nigeria?
Okay, starting from the experiences and then disposition to women leadership. So the experience, you want to look at how easy is it for a woman to emerge as leaders, as a leader. Take it to the political sphere. We know that it is rough and tough within the political parties. And yes, we have ladies, we have women who are prepared, to put themselves forward for, political office, political position. But at the end of the day, whether it's by the sheer number of the terrain that they have to navigate, the sheer number of men who are vying for these positions, the fact that men tend to bond with each other, and sometimes we just find that women get edged out, not because they're the weaker candidates, but they just get edged out of the game. So there is understanding the political game and being able to play the political game from within the parties, right from the grassroots up to, local, state, and national levels. Also, there is supposed to be provision, I believe, for 35% of women, taking political leadership positions. We find that our National Assembly has had a challenge in just even passing that legislation through. Why? Because they are the ones women are competing against, and they form the majority of the National Assembly, whether it's at the House of Reps or in the Senate. They form the majority. So that legislation is not yet, seeing the light of day, even though there's push here and there by, formidable women groups to ensure that this gets done. I would like to come to the, disposition of people towards women in leadership. We live in a patriarchal society. We all know that. Even though women have continued to try to emancipate themselves, first of all, we encourage women, be sure you're qualified, put in the work, get in the necessary qualifications, make sure you're up to the task. In fact, from recent incidents we have seen, society appears to be less forgiving to women. I'm going to refer to the issue of corruption and all of that, in which one or two women, have been fingered or have been named, you know, for allegations have been made, you know, against them for corruption. And the way, you know, society, media, and all of that have gone to even make it a media trial and pointing to the fact that they are women. Meanwhile, before you mention One Better Edu, they have loads of men who have gotten away with bigger numbers. In fact, Better Edu's allegation is child's play compared to, you know, some of the allegations against men, and some that have even been found to be true. We have people in leadership today in our National Assembly who still have pending matters against them in the area of corruption. So, shall I say, people are less forgiving when it comes to women, talking about disposition, you know, to women in leadership. So, for women, you need to try twice as hard. You need to be above board and, you know, show that, yes, you're certainly above board when it comes to being principled and, you know, just doing things right. We take it as a responsibility and place that obligation on ourselves, because you don't want to start, you know, defending and trying to justify things that probably would be forgiven the opposite sex, but when it comes to women, you know, it's harsher and, you know, less forgiving.
So what is the role of women in this harsh treatment towards women in leadership? There is a thing called pull her down syndrome, PhD. What's your take on that?
I'll say the role of women as a woman leader is that we should support our own, you know, support our own, train our own, mentor our own, give our own opportunities, you know. So, I mean, you mentioned pull her down syndrome, but I pray that, you know, there's less and less of that happening. And then I'm aware of many women groups that are investing in women and girls to empower them, you know, help with self-esteem, help with self-confidence, help with knowledge, with capability, with competence, just to make sure that they are well prepared and well seasoned to aim for the highest, highest positions and, you know, highest personal vision that they can have for themselves. So.
All right, let's look at some of the challenges being faced or the concerns about women in politics. You know, when it comes to family life, you know, the role of a woman or women is very crucial. But you observe that in this climate, most of the political meetings are always in the nine. These activities are somehow not too healthy for women. And so there are these concerns for women. How do we handle these concerns, especially for women that are married or that have kids and they're concerned about their men or their husbands? How do we marry these? The role when it comes to leadership, a balance with family life.
Thank you for bringing that up. I was not going to go there, that these meetings are held at 1 a.m., 2 a.m. And of course, the sight of a woman, you know, amongst so many men at that hour, you know, on its own appears somehow. But women will continue to engage. Women should continue to engage. There are some of those things that are discussed at those hours that women can engage around and about without necessarily having them to be at those hours. So a two-way dialogue. And that is not to say that we don't have some men who are actually collaborative and encouraging, you know, to women. So the more we get of he for she's, men, you know, who understand these constraints, getting them over to a side and, you know, working hand in hand with them, that also helps. But it's just a continuous process of engagement, you know, recognizing that some of these are intentional hurdles and obstacles that are put in the way of women to discourage them from moving forward. So understand the landscape and understand the game that is being played. And when you need to step out, step forward, you do that, you know. So against the background of the traditional society and all of that, I believe that is changing. We're not there yet, but that is changing. There's an understanding that sometimes there's a price to pay when you want something. Nothing good comes easy, you know. For accomplishment, for leadership, for, you know, being in the room when it matters, getting a seat at the table, sometimes there's a price that the woman has to pay. It's just being very clear what your objective is, what you're trying to achieve, and engaging the right people, getting as many people to collaborate with you, and sponsors. That's another thing that would help women, you know, sponsorship. Who's putting your name forward? Who's speaking up for you when you're not there? You know, so all those also matter.
All right, so for sponsors, the women will need both male and female to do that.
Certainly.
But the women will also need financial sponsorship. That brings us to business, women in business. So it is on record that Africa has the highest number of women entrepreneurs. So Africa taking the lead in terms of women entrepreneurs, what do you think has fueled that? Why do we have very industrious women in Africa?
I'm going to speak for Nigeria, and I'm going to say, as a people, we're resilient people. We are a resilient people. And over time, with the empowerment and the enlightenment and the encouragement that has come the way of the girl child, we have seen women go for what they want. We've seen women pursue their goals with, you know, eagle-eye focus. We've seen women mentors. We've seen women who have accomplished and been achievers in the past mentor the upcoming ones. So they're role models for women and girls now, much better than we had perhaps in you know, decades past. You know, for some of us, it's our parents. And I'm not necessarily saying an educated parent, but you saw a woman who, in spite of, you know, limited education, still pushed against the odds. Industrious. And there are many of them, how many kilometers, I mean miles, meters from here, even in Balogun there, you know. Industrious women who know about importation, exportation, and all of that, despite the fact that their literacy is a bit limited. So we've seen self-motivated women, we've seen women who've also been encouraged by mentorship and all of that. So coming to, you talk about financial inclusion and all of that. I know that there are banks that have desks now and products that are geared towards supporting women in business. There are various organizations and initiatives that are geared towards educating women, you know, financial education and all of that. So I believe there's more and more support for women to access funding and financing, but more still needs to be done in that area. And I'm going to quickly come into, you know, women in tech as well. I personally know of a venture that has set up, you know, funds that are particularly geared towards women in tech. You know, so we do have those initiatives coming up every now and then that are designed to support initiatives that are being promoted by women. So that has helped. That has helped.
Okay.
All right, the conversation is still about women, but we need to go on a break now. When we return, we'll continue the conversation looking at how to empower women as impactful leaders. Stay with us.
Tafawa Balewa Square, TBS. Tafawa Balewa Square was initially used as a housing ground called Lagos Race Course. The edifice was constructed by General Yakubu Gowon in 1972 and named after Nigeria's first Prime Minister, Sir Tafawa Balewa. Tafawa Balewa Square is located at 45/57 Masi Bangboshe Street on Lagos Island, Lagos, and referred to as TBS. TBS is a 50,000-seater capacity venue and houses the Remembrance Arcade, the 26-story Independence House, which at a time was the country's tallest building. When Lagos served as the country's seat of government, the National Assembly Complex was within the TBS. Also in the square are the National Broadcasting Commission Office, the Nigerian Hydrological Services Agency Office, shopping centers, travel agencies, restaurants, car parking lots, and a bus terminal. Tafawa Balewa Square is adorned with beautiful statues of white horses and red eagles, symbols of strength and dignity. Our historic neighbors include the King's College and the Holy Cross Cathedral. Tafawa Balewa Square hosted some of the country's memorable events, such as the Independence Day in 1960, when Nigeria gained independence from Britain, the Armed Forces Remembrance Day, which is celebrated annually on January 15. The edifice is a national cultural asset. Tafawa Balewa Square, Souk Enlightenment.
My name is Dr. Rafiu Oladipo.
My name is Baba Jalal Repega.
I'm Reverend Juliet Benite.
I'm Godio Didi.
My name is Professor Oladokun Sulaiman Olarawaju.
Souk News is on the ground, loading.
Very enlightening, very educative, and entertaining.
Thank you to Souk News.
So I'm happy that Souk TV has come into existence.
I'm happy to be here in the Souk News.
I want to encourage you to subscribe to the channel and keep watching news that makes sense.
As Browning said, one's extension of one's reach should not exceed one's grasp, or what is heaven for. And I think Souk News is doing that.
Africa needs a voice of truth, and Souk News has become one of them. And get ready, get ready, get ready.
And keep watching.
Keep watching Souk News.
Keep watching Souk News. It's a place to be.
Keep watching Souk News.
The challenge of governance is to see how we can leverage what is on the ground and convert this to wealth for the people.
Russia, China are gaining entry into Africa, and it would appear that some Western countries are losing out.
You're working as an expatriate worker, then you're paid in your currency. But then if you must spend those money, you need to convert those money to the local currency to spend.
For Social Security to work, we need to know exactly how many we are. We don't have a precise number. We need to know exact location of people.
When we address this exchange rate volatility, we will see definitely cost of goods and services will come down.
From a security point of view, we should employ the technology to ensure that we can track individuals and goods within the continent.
This is Early Exchange with Femi Ayodele.
You know, the Early Exchange is all about shaping policy and advancing development with our conversation. Today, we're set to give you the best of programming.
And Blessing Aiche.
We do hope that you enjoy every time you spend with us here today. The world needs peace. The world needs to come to a round table and find solutions to the pockets of troubles.
Early Exchange, shaping policy, advancing development.
If you're just joining us, the program is still Early Exchange, and we've been talking with Ayo Maji, who is the Executive Director, Africa Leadership Initiative, West Africa. And this is because it's Women's History Month. Let's look at women, empowering women for impact leadership. So you are the Executive Director of an organization that wants to build leadership in Africa. So how, as Executive Director, how do you intend to do this and bring in other African women building their leadership capacity?
Thank you very much, Blessing. Yes, so I currently lead the Africa Leadership Initiative, West Africa, like you mentioned. We're an organization that is focused, we say, on developing the next generation of leaders for the African continent. My immediate remit covers the West Africa region, and what we do is aim for leaders, individuals who have, accomplished some success in their personal or professional endeavors, and focus them on a different kind of leadership, which is leadership for social impact. So we do that by bringing them into training, development, empowering them with skills that draws their attention to gaps we have in society and inspires them to take action as they can on a personal level to address those gaps that they may have recognized within their communities, within their countries. Don't forget that these are highly accomplished individuals, like I said, both male and female. And they have, over the years, steadily come up with very interesting initiatives and interventions to drive impact within Nigeria and Ghana, where I supervise, and the rest of West Africa. We're part of an African body. So currently we have almost 500 fellows on the Africa continent, leaders from diverse backgrounds that are moving the needle to create a better society, across the continent for African citizens. So we do have fellows who are focused on education, creating institutions that are bound to make a change, on the continent. Institutions that imbibe leadership, from the young age through tertiary education, giving opportunities also to take on leadership roles. We do have fellows working in the health space, technology space, women empowerment, gender initiatives, food, climate, and all of that. And even just pushing for good governance, which is very essential to leadership. Just ensuring that, there's advocacy for good and transparent governance. So these are areas in which our alumni, do have initiatives across the continent, and it's a good work they're doing, I must say.
All right. When it comes to leadership in West Africa and the course of training leaders, engaging them, what are some of the wrong perceptions about leadership, the wrong beliefs about leadership in this climb, and then what should be the ideal template when it comes to leadership?
Okay. One of the wrong perceptions that really jumps out is even the motive to become a leader in this region or in Nigeria. What's the motivation to be a leader? Is it because you want to amass wealth? Is it because you just want more authority? Or just for the title? For egos? So the motivation for wanting to be a leader, I think that is a conception or a misconception that in our program we emphasize on. We're talking about servant leadership. We're talking about a leader who has the interest of the people you're serving at heart. A leader who puts others before themselves. A leader who is looking out to build a better, quality of life for the people you're leading, for those you're leading, whether you're in the political space, you're in the professional space, whatever it is. A leader should always be looking at, adding value and making positive change. So that is a gap that we see in people who are vying for leadership. The motivation is wrong. The motives are wrong, a lot of the times. And then, we talk about being a values-based leader. In Aliwa, the organization where I work, your values determine who you are. What are your values? Are you talking integrity, being ethical, being honest, being accountable, holding yourself accountable, focusing on results, being responsible and all of that. So your values determine how you would lead. And in the program that we run, we encourage that you lead by values. And you go through a series of seminars and programs that continue to put you in a position where you have that self-inflection and self-reflection all the time. Who am I as a leader? What's driving me? What's my motivation? How am I leading? What am I seeking to achieve? So that's another area in which our program, tries to educate, and we hope, for the region really, that we must lead by values, rather than by other factors that seem to motivate people for seeking leadership roles and positions.
All right, as we wrap up, what are the skills that will enable women to become impact leaders? What skills would they need?
Skills? Okay, I think first of all, come from a place of conviction, have a vision. Skills are good, but you must have a personal vision of what you're trying to achieve. And then, the passion for what you're trying to achieve is also very important. So those are like, personal to you. I really have a picture of what I think things should be like if you want to make, create social impact. And what's social impact? It's adding value to the society, in which we live. So you've seen women drive social impact from a point of even personal experience, what they've been through. They grew up missing one thing or the other, and they've decided to, devote competence, capability, resources to filling, those gaps. So yes, have a vision for how, for the impact you want to create, have passion for it, and then the skills and competences. You've got to get training for whatever it is you want to deliver on. Financial literacy, as much education as you can, networking, getting the right people around you, getting sponsors and mentors, people who walk the path that you want to walk, are able to also guide you.
Before we wrap up, let's talk about, because it's crucial as well, let's talk about the role of men in empowering women, in accelerating their progress. Now, let me shake the table. The challenge with most men is not that the women are playing the leadership role, but the perception about women who are strong and independent. And then the fact that they're creating a balance with the family life, the fear that, okay, the home front will suffer for it. What's your advocacy to men in this regard?
Well, the advocacy to men in this regard would be, as a man, what are your own goals? First of all, you're coming out of a family. Your mother, your siblings, your sisters. If you had sisters who are high achievers, a mother who's focusing on accomplishment, and the way you were raised, there was really no difference between you and your female siblings. You were all given equal opportunity. You were all told to, just follow your dreams and try and achieve your potentials. that kind of a man is likely to be an understanding husband who would realize that his wife has personal dreams and aspirations. And what he can do as her husband is to support her, you know, from the home front, you know, understanding that she may not be there 100% of the time, but when she's away, rather than castigate, oh, your mother has gone off again, is understanding. And he's able to even take out education and lessons for his own female children, you know, and his sons out of that situation. You know, that you can be a mom, you know, but we can balance the home. She's away, but nothing gets dropped in the home. You know, so an understanding and encouraging man, you know, who wants his wife to realize her potentials, I think is the ideal man.
We must thank you very much, Ayomide, the Executive Director of Africa Leadership Initiative, West Africa, for being with us on the show today. We hope to bring you back here some other time. It may not be Women's History Month, but in the near future to talk more on women in leadership and how women can, African women particularly, can be groomed into leadership so they can make impact. Thank you for your time on the show.
Thank you. Thank you.
All right, we would like to wrap it up here today, but do not forget that Early Exchange continues tomorrow, 8 a.m. West African time. And for African women, do not rest on your oars. Whatever it is you're doing, be passionate about it. Look at what you will achieve at the end of the day. Remember the beautiful, wonderful women of Africa that we talk about today, those before at this time and even those of this time that have made significant change to even enable you and I have education freely, because from the family setting before this time, the men were preferred, or boys parents preferred to send them to school than to send female children to school. But right now, that's not so much, particularly in the urban area. You just have a girl child, you want to send her to school. So let's keep pushing, and then the word that we hope to see, a beautiful one where there is equity, the woman is free, protected, and she's enabled to achieve her dreams, is created. Let's keep pushing for that. That's the show today. I am Blessing Ages. There is Sook News. There are many wonderful programs you will enjoy on Sook News.
It's a special month for women, and from me to all the men out there is to ensure that you support all the women around you. Be a catalyst and not a stumbling block to their progress. They are valuable, let's treasure them because they are pride of our nations. Don't forget the conversation continues on our social media platform and on our YouTube page. An Early Exchange returns tomorrow. I am Femi Ayodele. Bye for now.